now a disappearing act.
Hello Rivals fans, and welcome back to the Rivals Report, the show that gets you up to speed on Rivals esports news in a nice, bite-sized package. My name is Diatonic, and this is the Rivals Report number 15 for the week of September 8th, 2025. On this week's report, Ignite Stage 2 is upon us, and we've got another look at the newest teams entering the fray, this time from the Asia and Oceania regions. Season 3 of the Marvel Rivals Championship wrapped up this weekend, and we've got your after-action report. The Vanguardian League also wrapped up its final week of Season 3 competition, and we've got a look at that as well. And finally, Rivals Fight Night is back! The next evolution of Fight Night is here, and we've got your first look at what went down in the first new installment. Well, with Stage 2 starting up for the Asia and China regions this coming Thursday, welcome to Ignite Kickoff Week. We're here just in time with another round of our pre-Ignite coverage, here to walk you through the new teams competing in the Asia region, which starts this week, and Oceania, which starts up on the 25th. Let's start with the more timely of the two and talk about the Asia tournament. 5 teams from the Stage 1 playoffs are making their return here. Reject, Gen.G, Crazy Raccoon, XOXO01, and Assemble Fire are all back in action once again. Gen.G and Assemble Fire have yet to lock in their rosters, and with Gen.G saying farewell to a few of their core members just a couple of weeks ago, it'll be interesting to see who they bring into the fold. But if you're wondering where the Gen.G core went, they've moved over to the champion roster of the Season 2 MRC in Yoyang 1. Kaidia, Dotori, and Exi, all formerly of Gen.G as recently as the mid-season finals, all help make up this new Korean roster. The team's already made a name for themselves, dropping only 3 maps total in their upper bracket campaign during that MRC, and winning in undefeated fashion in the grand finals against Harrow. Let's talk about open qualifiers, with 2 teams from the first split and 4 teams from the second making it to Stage 2. First up is OEG, a roster playing mostly out of Vietnam that you won't find much mention of on Liquipedia. But if you're looking for a serious dark horse competitor, this might be your team. They've already defeated Incipients, a team we'll be talking about shortly, so time will tell how this newcomer squad stacks up. Somewhat of another mystery team from Qualifier 1 is Betrays, a squad fighting out of South Korea. It appears this team competed all the way back during the Season 1 MRC, with player Dawn being present on both squads. Most members aside from Dawn have completely changed out since that initial MRC run, so there are a couple of real dark horse options here in the Asia region. Next up, from Qualifier 2 is the Japanese org Rivati's Rivals roster. They're an org that's participated in other games such as Overwatch and Apex Legends, so they've got some shooter chops to their name. Core members Neil, Yatoru, and Axeleo all come from a different team called Axiom. This squad ended up winning Qualifier 2 after falling victim to Betrays in Qualifier 1, so they're potentially one of the stronger teams among this new crop. Qualifier 2's runner-up team was Incipients, a team from Southeast Asia. Incipients has been around since the Stage 1 qualifiers, but are finally getting their Ignite opportunity here. They actually clocked a top 6 finish during the Season 2 Pacific MRC, and are still alive in the Season 3 MRC, so they too could potentially be a force to be reckoned with. Members of this team are playing out of a variety of countries, including Singapore, Malaysia, and even Australia. Next up is another Southeast Asian team in the form of Down Payment, and one that's made a fairly big splash since their announcement. This squad is a super team made up of members formerly of other teams like Rival Esports, Ground Zero, Kanga Esports, and The Vicious. It's also home to yet another former member of Gen.G, Fun. They're still a new team, but having players with a fair bit of experience at their backs will surely help them in Stage 2. And last but not least for Asia, we have one more Southeast Asian team, Revival, now going by the name Rocket University. They originally lost to Rivati during the first round of qualifiers, but came back and made their way into Ignite through the second. Like a number of the other teams we've talked about in this breakdown, they don't have much competitive history among their members, but will be representing not only Singapore and Malaysia, but also South Korea and Saudi Arabia as well. Finally, let's round out team introductions by talking about the OCE region. The top 4 teams from Oceania Stage 1 are all back in action, but there's an asterisk next to the champion team, Ground Zero. The org announced on Saturday that the roster was parting ways, but the team is sticking together and playing Stage 2 under the name Chopper Mag. They came into Stage 1 and absolutely cleaned house, so this team is one to watch for sure. For newcomers, first up is the Pacific Season 2 MRC runners-up, Fury. This team was originally known as Harrow back during the MRC, but were signed by the Australian org just a short while back. Fury initially fielded a roster and participated in the Marvel Rivals Invitational back in February, where they fell victim to Kanga Esports in an 0-3 loss. The original Fury roster would go on to become the first roster that Ground Zero would field, before later settling on their MRC winning roster. Next up, from the first open qualifier for Stage 2, we have Brainstorm Esports, whose core consists of former Ignite Stage 1 competitors from teams such as Pig Team and Gapped. They had a decent run through the Season 3 MRC, though they were knocked down into the lower bracket early by XOXO01 and then eventually finished off by FL Esports. Still, this is a team that's finding their place in the competitive field, so not a bad underdog choice if you're looking for one. The other team making it through Qualifier 1 is Vulcan Red, one that's gotten a fair bit of attention in the OCE Rivals Twitter space. Their team is also a super team conglomerate, with players having prior experience on teams such as Axiom, Kanga, Arius, Quetzal, and even a Rival 7. They've made appearances in some community tournaments such as the Rebirth Circuit and the Cozyverse Cash Cup, and they also had a decent run in the current MRC as well. They were defeated by Crazy Raccoon in the upper bracket semifinals and fell victim to FL Esports in the lower bracket semis. Turning to Qualifier 2 now, we have a fairly interesting team in the form of, and pardon my pronunciation, Shaoli Song Dao, which is a Chinese idiom that roughly translates to "a smile hides a knife." A fairly large chunk of this team's core originally played for the Vicious back in Stage 1, with a twist or two thrown in. The biggest surprise about this team is the presence of Hogs, a prolific player who has experience with several NA Ignite teams such as Nightmare, Sentinels, and most recently, Dark Zero. And that covers all the new teams competing in Asia and Oceania. Certainly several new and returning faces included on these teams, but time will tell how they stack up against their more seasoned competitors. We'll have plenty more Ignite coverage as Stage 2 gets underway later this week and progresses throughout the month, so be sure to subscribe. Many Rivals Report viewers aren't subscribed, so you may miss out on some of the latest updates and content. Well, Season 4 of Marvel Rivals is right around the corner, as is Ignite, but before we can move on, we had to witness the conclusion to the Season 3 Marvel Rivals Championship. It's been a more heated MRC than ever before across both the Americas and EMEA, with some real heavy hitter teams coming out to play in this one. Starting with the EMEA side, after falling victim to Virtus Pro 0-3 in the upper bracket finals, Chopped fought their way back into grand finals with a massive 3-2 win over Zero Tenacity. Virtus Pro was back in peak form here, blazing a trail of devastation through the entire MRC as they reached grand finals without dropping a single map. The final bout got underway on Yggdrasil Path, a map that's often been one of VP's strengths, and that rang true here as well. Not only did they clear the map with 2 minutes still on the clock, but they nearly managed a full spawn hold here, only allowing Chop to traverse 70 meters from the start. Chopped had a better run on Hall of Djalia, managing to clear 2 checkpoints, but VP again managed to build up a time bank of more than 5 minutes, giving them plenty of time to lock in a map 2 win as well. Chopped again were able to clear a couple of checkpoints as we headed to Central Park next, but yet again it just wasn't enough to stop the avalanche that Virtus Pro were sending to their opponents. It was rapid-fire offense from start to finish from VP, and that pushed them to an incredibly early match and tournament point. Araco now for map 4, and Virtus Pro had a massive shutdown against Chopped here, stopping them inches from the first checkpoint and setting themselves up to end this series in 4. Virtus Pro have once again poised themselves as one of, if not the most powerful team in the EMEA region, with this being their 4th MRC victory after winning the Beta, Season 0, and Season 1 MRCs along with this one. The Americas Grand Finals were a similar story. Dreamland defeated Team Nemesis 3-0 in the upper bracket finals, then Nemesis afforded themselves a shot at redemption in the Grand Finals by defeating Atlanta PXG 3-0 as well. Dreamland have already proven themselves to be a force, but could they get Lightning to strike twice by defeating Nemesis again? It was a brutal back and forth to kick things off on Symbiotic Surface, one that would make its way into extra rounds. But Nemesis would finally take a map off Dreamland here, locking in the win with about 60 seconds left on the clock. But they wouldn't have that lead for long though, as Dreamland would grit their teeth and push to the end of the map on Central Park, then lock Nemesis down after halftime. With the series all tied up, these two teams went to war on Celestial Husk next. Try as they might, but Nemesis weren't able to right the ship quite yet, and Dreamland took the lead for the first time in this series 2-1. With Nemesis now playing catch-up, we headed to Hell's Heaven for map 4. Melophobia's Wolverine would come in clutch on this map and allow Nemesis to take a fairly confident map 4 win, evening out the score yet again. Hall of Djalia was on the docket for map 5, and with the map count dwindling down, both teams were ready for a war of attrition here. In an over 20-minute map, Nemesis were finally able to take the lead back, being the first team to advance to match point. Back to Yggdrasil Path once again for map 6, with a bit of a mountain for Dreamland to climb to get back in the fight. But they were going to make every attempt to scale it, clearing the path for themselves and managing to hold Nemesis to a single checkpoint, which brought us to a tense map 7. With a score at a dead even 3-3, it was time for some gridlock on Midtown to round out this epic series. And gridlock it was, as it ended up being the lowest scoring map in the entire series, but with a touch of grit and some stellar execution, it would be Dreamland emerging victorious and taking home the MRC crown. Nemesis makes yet another Ignite team that Dreamland has been able to defeat in the run-up to Stage 2. Players we've seen in the past like Mace and Valentina have massively improved since their initial appearances, and it shows here. Some might be overlooking Dreamland heading back into Ignite, but they've sent a message to the entire competitive Rivals community here. They're not to be underestimated. And the MRC isn't the only tournament that wrapped up over the weekend, as the Vanguardian League also held its final matches of Season 3. The competition's been fierce, with new and veteran teams colliding throughout the past few weeks of competition, but of course there can only be one winner. So let's take a look at the conclusion of VGL Season 3 and see who's been crowned champion. We got our first look at Korova and Rymazing since they recently made the jump to Dark Zero here, as DZ took on FlyQuest in the upper bracket finals. The first map unfortunately didn't go their way, however, as FlyQuest came out of the gate swinging for a big Map 1 win. Hell's Heaven was the stage for Map 2, and DZ started to come back, fighting their way all the way to the third point. But Fly had built up too much momentum by then, and they managed to take down Dark Zero 2-0 and punch their ticket to the VGL Grand Finals. That also gave us our lower bracket finals match, with Dark Zero headed down to face off with Intergalactic. And what a midtown for Dark Zero here, an incredibly strong push and maybe even a stronger defense to grab a Map 1 win. Intergalactic changed it up on Hell's Heaven next, and Doomed went absolutely nuts on the Star-Lord, but Dark Zero stood tall in spite of the odds looking a bit more stacked against them. They were able to get a one-sided Luna out of the ban phase too, all leading to Dark Zero winning Hell's Heaven 2-1. Map 2 belonged to Dark Zero, sending Intergalactic home and getting their run-back opportunity in the Grand Finals. And it all came down to this, a rematch here in the VGL and a preview of things to come in Ignite Stage 2 in just a couple short weeks. We had FlyQuest taking on Dark Zero once again. And much like the first time these two tangled tonight, FlyQuest came out of the gate swinging. They managed to kick things off with a Map 1 victory, setting the stage for a repeat of their upper bracket finals encounter. Map 2 was brutal for Dark Zero too, with FlyQuest on defense first, ultimately holding Dark Zero just short of the first checkpoint on Midtown. They switched sides, and in the blink of an eye, they'd already matched Dark Zero's push, ultimately winning the second map and moving to match and tournament point. With their backs against the wall, Dark Zero managed to give FlyQuest a run for their money on the first point of Burnin' T'Challa, but after clawing back that point and a big sneak play to retake on the second, FlyQuest would conclude the Grand Finals with a sweep. And that completed FlyQuest's no maps dropped campaign through the upper bracket of the VGL, defeating the former Arrival 7, Intergalactic, and Dark Zero twice, all in perfect fashion. There's some buzz going around about their strength heading into Stage 2, and after defeating multiple Ignite-level teams in this tournament, I'm inclined to believe that they'll be a threat once Ignite kicks off in just a couple weeks. And that's all from the Vanguardian League for now, with Season 3 now fully in the books. But not to worry, as the Valhallan Order over on X has already hinted at a reveal for Season 4 coming very soon. For all news regarding future seasons of the VGL, be sure to hop into their Discord server. Link is in the description. And finally this week, the long-awaited return of Rivals Fight Night is back, though it's operating under a different name and brand. Fight Night was a weekly exhibition match showcase, bringing together the best teams from NA and EMEA to compete. Now under the name Project Night Shift, the RFN crew are back in action and delivering heavy-hitting matches to us once again. The return happened last Thursday, with both EMEA and NA on the docket once again. Newcomer Team Chopped took on Alcadzia in the EMEA qualifier match, with World Champions Team 1 awaiting the victor. Over on the NA side of the aisle, Dreamland took on FlyQuest in the qualifier, with Envy waiting to see who came out on top. Chopped had an uphill battle in the Rivals Night Shift debut, taking on former Stage 1 Ignite competitor Alcadzia. Cadzia won a fairly contested Krakoa for Map 1, playing out all 3 points to pick up the win. Convergence on Central Park next, and Cadzia put up a fight, but the scrappy Chopped would work their way towards a Map 2 victory, evening out the score. Chopped would go on to win Burnin' T'Challa after that, uncontested and on to match point. Cadzia clapped back with a big hold on Yggdrasil Path though, stopping Chopped short of a single checkpoint and taking us to Map 5. And it was a close Celestial Husk, but Chopped managed to pull ahead in the final 2 points, and they punched their ticket to the money match. So Chopped advanced and were on to face an even greater threat. The team formerly known as Rad Esports and the first ever Rivals World Champions, Team 1. But Chopped opened this series with an absolute stunner, taking an extremely contested win on Celestial Husk. But they truly started to pull away on Hall of Dajalia, holding Team 1 short of the first checkpoint. Team 1 managed to stop the bleeding on Map 3 though, thanks in large part to some cleanup in the ban phase and Melio's Psylocke. And they managed to take this series all the way as well after a big Map 4 win for Team 1. But in what may very well have been one of the closest maps I've ever seen, Chopped managed to inch their payload across the finish line on Map 5 and upset the defending world champs.
It is back and forth, spawn for spawn, Crazy Kitty, Star-Lord Swap, able to find Naga, Team 1 find bit by bit, and that could be it, Chopped! They are your new champion here on Rivals Night Shift.
An absolutely crazy set from start to finish, and one that gives us a new Night Shift EMEA champion. Now over to the NA play-in match, where newcomer Team Dreamland took on veteran squad FlyQuest. Dreamland kicked things off with a big stunner, jumping out ahead to a 2-0 win on Krakoa to start things off. Yggdrasil Path up next, and Dreamland managed to complete a couple of miracle pushes in overtime to get themselves to an early match point. FlyQuest entered Spider Islands with their backs against the wall, looking for a triple tank, triple support full hold at spawn against Dreamland, and they did a great job of shading some of their time bank down, but even that wasn't enough to stop the avalanche that was Dreamland. They finished the series 3-0 and went on to face Envy in the money match. And finally, it was Envy versus Dreamland in that money match, maybe the toughest challenge Dreamland have faced as a team so far. Celestial Husk was a tough back and forth, ending in a 99-99 at the very end, but Envy survived and picked up the first win. Envy fought their way through a brutal Dreamland defense on Spider Islands next, but Envy couldn't make it far enough to stop them from evening the score. We headed to Central Park next, and Dreamland kicked things off with a visceral offense, but Envy responded in kind and won the map in a chaotic team fight at the very end. With Dreamland standing at the edge of the cliff now, we headed to Krakoa for map 4, and Envy would seal the deal here with a dominant win over the newcomer team, successfully defending their title in the first Rivals Night Shift NA.
And this is Envy now. It's all done but the crying, folks. They are going to take away the series and also retain.
To round out the night, we received confirmation that Thursday nights are indeed back, with the Night Shift crew signing off and telling everyone to be back same time next Thursday for some more fights. So nature is healing and Fight Night is back! Be ready to clock in every Thursday night for even more EMEA and NA action. Well, that's all for this week's Rivals Report. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest in Marvel Rivals Esports. And be sure to follow me on other platforms including Twitch, X, and TikTok. And if you're looking to break into Rivals Esports yourself, look no further than Engage. They're an organization that looks to empower esports players through event hosting and production. They're also the minds behind some Rivals community tournaments like the Chronovium Cup and the Rivals Grassroots Weekly. For all things Engage, keep it tuned to their website at engage.gg. I've been Diatonic, you've been amazing, and I'll see you in game.